best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
We're back on the Financial Survival Network. You're listening to Kerry Lutz. Hey, update on the great new, wide, wonderful silver fix. What's going on there? Well, it's turning out to be not so elegant a patch. You know, in software, when programmers hit a block and they have to come up with a workaround, they call it a kludge or a kludge, Kludge. Well, that's what the great new silver fix is turning out to be. Here to talk about it is Alasdair Macleod of goldmoney.com. Alasdair, welcome back.
Oh, that's my pleasure, Kerry.
Hey, so the silver fix, it's like turning into a real cluster, you know what? Nobody's too happy with it. Price discovery, the first day we had it, silver went down about 33 cents the ounce, and nobody quite understands anything, do they?
No, I'm very disappointed with it because the whole object of coming up with a new method of fixing the silver was to give greater transparency. And I just don't see that transparency. And I think this is very important because London is competing with other markets now in precious metals. And unless London smartens up its act, we're going to lose it. And it looks to me like the members of the LBMA are hanging around what they know, and they just don't understand that this is going away from them.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm still not clear on exactly what this fix is showing us, how many trades, how many participants. It doesn't look like it's showing very much of what's going on in the market, does it?
No, I think the only extra information we have is the number of participants. Well, we knew that before. You had 3 people in the fix. This time, it's not necessarily the same 3. And the only other information we're told is what the balance is at the end of the fix. In other words, how many ounces were on the buy side and how many ounces were on the sell side. And that's got to be within 100,000. But that's the only information we're given, and which is completely useless.
Yeah, what kind of game are they playing here? I mean, who came up with this wonderful thing?
Well, exactly. You may well ask. I can understand the CME providing the platform because they do platforms. I'm really not sure where Thomson Reuters comes in this. They're meant to sort of administer it and oversee it. But I think they're conflicted because basically they're an information provider, and I think you've got to subscribe. I mean, certainly after 6 months, you're going to have to subscribe to for a Reuters terminal in order to get the information, and that is not consistent with making a market more transparent. It's they have failed on every count. They are behaving as if the only type of market that they can work is an over-the-counter market. An over-the-counter market is one basically where people will get together on an individual basis and they'll agree to do a deal between them, and nothing is published. And that's not good enough. It really isn't. This should be an open market where there is proper information to stop a false market occurring. We're just not getting it, Kerry.
Yeah, and it looks like they modeled the market on the Flash Boys or something here. It's absurd, and you should be able to drill down and look at these trades, even if you don't know who's exactly doing the trade. Okay, that should be kept confidential, but you should be able to look at the trades, right? Just like a ticker.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly that, and not only that. If anyone listening to this says that I've got a vested interest in wanting to have all this information, yeah, fine. But we're now competing with China, for example, and also Dubai, and also Singapore. These places see that there is a market up for grabs. And China in particular is now the largest miner in the world and the largest consumer of gold in the world. And they have made the simple announcement that they want price discovery to occur over there. And I can understand that. And unless London wakes up and smartens up its act, it's going to lose it. It's as simple as that. And also another point I'd like to make, Kerry, is that in the good old days when nobody challenged London's primacy in the market, basically most of the world's gold production was sold through London. Why? Because the time zone. And so we would have something like 8 tons a day flowing into the market, which is very, very important to keep this market going. Now that's now bypassing the market. I know as close as possible to a fact that the Chinese keep all their production. We now know, looking at the amount of gold that the Russians are buying, that they're keeping pretty well all their production. And if they're not actually keeping their production, they're buying in. So, they're building their reserves. And not only that, but China is going out and doing deals all around Africa and saying to people who produce gold, look, we'll take your doré, we'll agree a price, and then we'll ship it and refine it. And where does that go? That goes into China, and it's never seen again. So the amount of free new mine supply going through London is diminishing all the time. And I think it's no accident that this is happening. And so London really does have to respond to this very, very quickly if it is going to keep this market going.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not staying up with the times, and the world is changing. And aside from that, it's just keeping everybody in the dark, and it's not really serving the free market, right? I mean,
precisely.
Yeah. I thought we were supposed to have a free market.
Well, it goes back to the Big Bang, when what was decided as a regulated investment. I mean, things like stocks, bonds, derivatives were all regulated investments, but physical metals were not. Physical commodities were not going to be regulated investments. They were excluded from this. And that is why the London bullion market really, from that moment, developed as a very big over-the-counter market. So, it's that was the original error. And this is why it has drifted so far. Rather like the same thing as foreign exchange markets are not regulated. The money markets are not regulated. And where has all the trouble been with fixes like LIBOR and currency fixes and gold and silver and all the rest of it? It's all been in these over-the-counter markets. It's got to change.
Yeah, for sure. And another interesting thing, though, is that the new silver fix came and went, and we don't have chaos in the market, though. So I guess all the participants have agreed to abide by the new fix, to have their old contracts governed by this new fix, right?
Well, I suppose so, yes. I mean, I can't see that there's been any change at all. It's we're just going on with more or less the old system. It's as I say, the only difference is that they do seem to publish at the end of the day what the balance of buyers and sellers is.
Yeah, so the old contracts are just continuing like nothing happened. That's it.
Correct. Correct.
So until something external happens, or until they're forced, you mentioned the possibility that regulators in the UK are just going to say, all right, enough of this. You've got to open things up, and you've got to share this information with the public. It's not a boys' club anymore, right?
Well, I think the regulators being forced to do it because they're in the difficult position that because they don't regulate this market, they're being looked at as the regulator for a market that they don't regulate. But they do regulate the banks, so they can regulate the behavior of the banks. But not only that, but the politicians are getting involved. The Commons Treasury Select Committee interrogated the FCA, who's the regulator in London, about this. It was about 6 weeks ago. And they were really put on the spot. And other expert witnesses made it absolutely clear that the market is not fit for purpose. And so the bank, I'm pretty sure that the FCA, having gone through that experience, knows that they are going to have to bring this market into their regulatory orbit. And if the LBMA cannot evolve itself satisfactorily, then I have no doubt that the FCA will be forced to step in. And I think the point about this silver fix is that it has demonstrated that the members of the LBMA cannot get their act together. So regulation, I think regulation is bound to start to hit them. And I really think that, I'm not a fan of regulation, don't get me wrong, but the way to deal with this is just ensure that everybody has proper market information so that you don't get a false market occurring. Now, a conspiracy theorist might say, well, of course, that's what they want. They want to rig the market.
That's what they've been doing, right? That's what they've been doing, for Christ's sake.
Well, the thing that's wrong about it is that we cannot deny that. And we should be in a position to say, no, this market is okay. But that is not the situation. And this market should be open. We should know what goes on. We should get the right statistics. We should be able to judge so that this market, the price will stand on proper information and proper knowledge, not on sort of deals which are sort of, done between people which are never reported. And that's where the whole thing is really quite wrong. And I think, if I may say so, if I take a slight swipe at your markets over there, I really think also that the futures markets over there should be somewhat better controlled, let's put it that way, because it's not just a London problem.
Oh, we know that's the two are working in concert, in tandem with one another, basically functioning in gaps in the regulation, respective gaps, and they just work perfectly together.
Yeah, this is why I don't like regulation, because if you start running a rule book, then lawyers start finding holes in it, and they exploit it very effectively. I mean, the biggest employer of lawyers have got to be investment banks.
Of course,
that's for a very good reason. And that's why I actually don't like regulation. If any of these banks actually had to stand on their own reputation, and they put that first and foremost, unless they did that, they would all be out of business. Because what would happen? We would just take our money out from them.
Yeah, that's why things were so nice when they were partnerships, and the partners' capital was on the line every day, and their reputations were on the line as well. But those days are long gone, and they're not coming back. We know that. So let's just go back to the SEC's original purpose was, we're not going to pass on the validity of any securities that are filed here, or the benefits or their investment merits. All we want is full disclosure, preferably in English that one can understand. And that's the way the market should be run. Transparency. And you figure out the rest of it, or find a service that can understand it and advise you. And we can kind of take it from there. Hey, well, when we come back, let's talk about what's going on with QE in the ECB, in the EU, and in Europe, whether that's a head fake or whether it's real, on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
The show's brought to you by Audible. Audible's back as a sponsor. Just go to audiblepodcast.com/FSN, and you'll see they've got over 150,000 titles to choose from fiction, nonfiction, bestsellers, every category imaginable. They've got free apps. You can download and listen on your iPhone, iPad, Android, Windows Phone, every device imaginable. And unlike a streaming or rental service, with Audible, you own your books. So you know that I've been an Audible fan for years now. I've listened to over 310 books since I've had it. Last one that I listened to was called The Frackers, and I will give a hat tip to Jason Burak for that one. An incredible book about the history of fracking in America, in Texas, and how it developed in North Dakota. It's a book that you really got to check out. I'm reading one right now, or I should say listening to it, called The Sons of Wichita, about the Koch brothers and how that family developed an immense business worth God knows how much, hundreds of billions of dollars. Incredible book. There's so many great books. I love the Joseph Finder books, the Harry Bosch series by Michael Connolly, but you've got so many books to choose from that you'll have to find one. And Audible's got an incredible offer for you right now. Go to audiblepodcast.fsn to take advantage of it right now. Okay. The way it works is really simple. You get a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. So check it out now. It's really great. It's easy to use. And look, if you're like me, you don't have the time to read as much as you used to. But if you're driving in the car or you're sitting out by the pool or the beach, you put on a book. It's an amazing service. I love it. You will too. Go to audiblepodcast.com/FSN. Take advantage of that free book and that free 1 month's membership now. You're going to love it. I promise you. And tell me some books that you like, that you've listened. I'll tell you some of mine. If you send me an email today to KHL@kerrylutz.com, I will give you my top 10 Audible picks. And I guarantee you're going to love them. Check it out now. audiblepodcast.com/FSN.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we're back with Alasdair Macleod of Gold Money, and we're talking about QE from the European Central Bank. Is it another head fake, or is it really going to happen this time? Well, Alasdair, so Europe a mess as usual, or certainly during this economic crisis, which really doesn't have an end. And now, is it the moment of truth? Is the ECB going to have to sidestep its rules and just print money and buy bonds, right?
Well, I have no doubt that the Eurozone is in a slump. I think the statistics which show that, France has sort of grown by 0.1% or whatever from time to time are a load of absolute nonsense. But that's what people use. So, that I suppose is what we've got to comment on. The thing that's worrying is that it does appear that Germany is slowing down quite rapidly. And I think it's losing quite a lot of business because of the Ukrainian situation, apart from anything else. Also, when I look at the statistics or the surveys coming out of the United States, it seems to me that your economy isn't doing nearly as well as everybody expected it would. Sort of after the last GDP number, people were talking about it sort of, growing quite rapidly. That doesn't seem to be happening. So the powerhouses like Germany, I think, are suffering quite badly. Now, without Germany's decent performance, then that does really expose the other countries in the Eurozone as being in a very, very weak condition. So even though QE doesn't actually resolve anything, I have no doubt that the ECB will come under pressure to ease further. And by ease, I mean print money or maybe even negative interest rates or whatever. Now, they are hamstrung somewhat by their rules, which means that they can't rush in and buy government bonds themselves. They will probably find ways around this. Of that, I think we can be fairly sure. Whether you actually get QE as such, I think that things would have to deteriorate very, very sharply in order for the objections against QE, which primarily come from Germany's constitution, for those objections to be overruled. So until then, I think that in a funny way, they have achieved something, and that is they've managed to persuade the global banking community to rush in and buy bonds, like Spanish bonds, Italian bonds, even Greek bonds. Now, part of that deal actually has been a strong euro. But interestingly, if you look at the performance of the euro over the last month, that has really taken a bit of a tumble. And I think that all these sort of cross-currency rates could actually have quite an effect on the whole situation. If you get bond yields rising because we've got a weaker euro, then under those circumstances, that could change the balance of things quite a lot. So it's an interesting situation. I think continue to watch it. I don't think the QE resolves anything. In fact, I know it doesn't, because really what you're doing is you're killing savers. And I mean, zero interest rates kill savers anyway. But with QE, effectively, you are implying a transfer of physical wealth from savers to the new beneficiaries, who are governments and the banks.
Especially the banks. Especially the banks.
Exactly. And the bank's favored customers. So So it doesn't actually achieve anything. But, the only weapon that central banks have is to expand the quantity of money, and that's what they do.
Yeah, and the recipients of that money are the big winners, the 1% or 0.1%, depending on your point of view. And
Exactly.
We see it over and over again, and we see what's happened in the States here, and it hasn't helped unemployment. It hasn't helped anything. Although I have to say, we're selling a lot of new cars that people can't afford. And just today, repossessions of autos are up 70%. So it's great for the repo outfits.
Well, that's right. And, there are two things to say about that. Firstly, it's now been over 5 years since the Lehman crisis. And, we have to continue to renew our cars because our cars get old and they fall apart. So, there is an imperative to go out and buy these things. Now, not only that, I don't know how it works over in the States, but over here, companies like Volkswagen, like Honda, they all have their own finance companies. And traditionally, when things have been going well, they make as much money out of their finance companies as they do out of selling their cars. Now what they've been doing is they have been not so much making money out of the finance companies, but using cheap finance like zero interest rates as a means of selling their motor cars. And so with all these nice deals where you've got very, very low interest rates, if you go out and, say, borrow £20,000 to buy a motor car, of course, people are going and buying motor cars. And that's what this business is all about.
Yep. Move the metal. It's called. There's a seat for every ass and an ass for every seat, as they say in the trade. And, it's just remarkable because I think last year or this year, 16 million vehicles got sold, new cars. And, we haven't had any sales like that. But basically the sole lending criteria in the States now is if you can fog a mirror, you too can get a new car. And, that's all you need to do. And it's, it's not going to end well, but the only good thing is it's much easier to repossess an auto than it is to foreclose on a home that somebody has defaulted upon. You don't have to go to court. There's a whole process for it, much easier, much faster. And, it's an expedited process. You just grab it. So, and in fact, now they even have we did a piece on it recently, Alasdair. They've got devices that will disable your car if you fall behind on a payment. So, it's taken all the guesswork out of it. But problem is when eventually, just like with foreclosed homes, you get so many cars that you've repossessed that need to be sold off in the channel that the price of used cars goes down and your losses go up. And just like you said, that they're financing captive banks at all these automakers used to be profit centers. Now they're just a means to blow out the merchandise. So it's big problems for society and big problems for the business. Yeah.
And I think as a result, we've built up enormous overcapacity in vehicle manufacturing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's become a nationalistic kind of endeavor that really doesn't necessarily benefit the country. Subsidies, just like any other corporation that becomes nationalized and free market isn't allowed to function. And we wind up with the mess that we have now. Any event, Alasdair, that's it for today. So, hey, just tell us again where we find your writing. I know on goldmoney.com, but other venues we can find it.
Yes. Also my own blog, which is financeandeconomics.org, and various other people pick it up, sort of. So if you Google me, you'll sort of find something, I'm sure.
All right. And of course, we've always got links to all your work on financialsurvivalnetwork.com And if you're looking for the latest news about what's really happening in the economy, go there. Our webmaster, Stefan, aggregates from every imaginable web portal on the web. I mean, 30 to 60 articles a day. Sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you posted. Alasdair, thanks so much.
That's my pleasure, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every day, the Financial Survival Network reaches tens of thousands of listeners and would like to reach thousands more. By adding a video channel and more show hosts, we think we can make that happen. But we need your help. If you're a regular listener of FSN and would like to help, please go to clubfsn.com to donate monthly from $1 to $100. The choice is yours, but every bit counts. There are premiums available for you, but the biggest one by far is you helping FSN get the message out to your friends and family to be prepared, hopeful, and ready. That's what FSN is all about, and that's why you listen. So go to clubfsn.com and help us get the word out before it's too late.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.